tayo?
Good afternoon po, Doc. Di pa po.
Hello? Yes, hello. Good afternoon.
Di pa po complete, Doc.
Hindi pa complete. Sige. Saba. Pero I will start na so that everyone matapos natin agad. Then, siguro habol na lang iba. Anyway, so this will be your last topic for your gross radiology. So, let's have a recap lang. So, you have your introduction to diagnostic imaging. Tama ba? You have your endocrine system uploaded. May kakopya kayo before?
Yes po, Doc.
Then you have your pelvis and pelvic content lectured last week. Tama? Hello?
Yes po, Doc.
Okay. So now you will have your last topic, which is radiography of the male reproductive system and your female reproductive system. So I'm going to discuss this lecture. The next meeting, you will have your time to study for others, other subjects as well as for gross radiology. So hindi na tayo magkakaroon ng meeting next week. So that will be your review time for gross radiology. I hope you use that time to have a recap of everything para mabawasan yung backlog nyo for the prelim exam that will happen next week. Tama? Next week yun. So we'll have your quiz. Your quiz will have it later, no? Around 5:30 for the first two topics. So good luck on your quiz. Madali lang naman siya. Okay, let's start. So let's start with your radiography of the male reproductive system. So for the radiography of your male reproductive system, we have at least 5 structures that can be appreciated. You have your prostate gland, seminal vesicle, the testes, epididymis, and the vas deferens. Let's start with your prostate gland. The prostate gland is a fibromuscular glandular organ shaped like an upside-down truncated cone. It surrounds the base of the bladder and the proximal urethra, extending inferiorly to the urogenital diaphragm and the external sphincters. The urethra enters the upper part of the prostate near its anterior surface and then assumes a somewhat more central position before curving slightly anteriorly again to exit at the apex of the glands. So what are the boundaries for your prostate gland? We have the base that is related to the bladder above. You have its apex inferiorly sitting on the pelvic urogenital diaphragm. So turo natin. So this is the base of the bladder. You have your apex, which is inferiorly sitting. Sorry, ito yung apex, which is the base of the bladder, which is yung base related to the bladder above. Right? Then you have your apex, inferiorly sitting on the pelvic urogenital diaphragm. You have your anterior wall, which is separated from the pubic symphysis by the retropubic space of rectus, and the posterior wall related to the rectum, behind the 2 inferolateral walls related to the muscles of the pelvic side wall and the anterior part of the levator ani on on either sides. So you have your Denevillers fascia, which separates the prostate and the seminal vesicles from your rectum. You have also your puboprostatic ligament that runs from the anterior inferior part of the gland to the pubic bone and provides support. So this is your rectovesical fascia, or what we call as your Denevillers fascia. Then you have your seminal vesicles, you have your retrovesical space, then you have your other structures such as your prostate and so on. Remember that the prostate gland does not have a true capsule, but is surrounded by a fibrous sheath derived from a pelvic fascia and continues with your puboprostatic ligaments. You have at least 5 lobes for your prostate gland. You have your muscular on the anterior lobe, or what you call as your isthmus. It is anterior to the urethra, composed mainly of your fibromuscular fibers, and contains little, if any, glandular tissue. We have your posterior lobe, which is posterior to the urethra and inferior to the insertion of your ejaculatory ducts. You have your median lobe between the urethra and ejaculatory ducts, and you have the 2 lateral lobes, which forms the bulks of the gland. For the zonal anatomy of the prostate, you have at least 3 zones. You have your peripheral zone that contains about 70% of the glandular tissue. It is where the prostate carcinoma arises. You have also your central zone, which contains 25% of your glandular tissue. And you have your transitional zone that contains 5% of glandular tissue in the normal prostate. So any enlargement of your transitional zone can be correlated to your benign prostatic hypertrophy. So usually sa mga BPH patients, ito yung lumalaki throughout the transitional zone. In cases of looking for any nodule within the peripheral zone, this can be correlated to the presence of your carcinoma. Grossly, it will be appreciated as this one. So as you can see, this is your central zone. You have your transitional zone and the peripheral zone. So yung central zone natin, mostly 25% ng glandular tissue. If we're looking for lesions, look for the peripheral zone in order to rule out prostate carcinoma. Likewise, for your hypertrophy, there's benign prostatic hypertrophy, there's enlargement that can be correlated to the transitional zone. Wait lang. Central zone that surrounds the urethra above the level of your ejaculatory ducts, which passes through and roughly corresponds to the medial lobe. The transitional zone is a narrow area inside the central zone at the level of your ejaculatory ducts and noveromantum. And the peripheral zone occupies the posterior and lateral and apical parts of the gland. The anterior fibromuscular stroma is contiguous with the detrusor superiorly and blends with your striated levator muscles and puboprostatic ligaments inferiorly. So with aging, the transitional zone hypertrophies and the central zone atrophies. So therefore, again, like I said earlier, usually the prostatic cancers arises from your peripheral zone. While the cause of your benign prostatic hypertrophy, again, is your transitional zone. Next structure that can be seen in male reproductive system is the seminal vesicles. It is a paired sacculated diverticula that lies transversely behind the prostate. It stores your seminal fluids and it is described as convoluted tubules narrows at their lower ends to fuse with the vas deferens to become the ejaculatory ducts. So for the radiology of the prostate and seminal vesicles, look for the following, use the following modalities. You could do your ultrasound. By ultrasound, you could appreciate your transabdominal and transrectal approach. You could do your MRI and you could do your CT scan. Let's start with your ultrasound. By ultrasound, you could assess the prostate gland through your transabdominal approach or even a transrectal approach. For a transabdominal approach, the problem is you need to do it in a well-distended bladder in order to appreciate the prostate that is seen at the base of the bladder. Any enlargement of the prostate elevates the bladder base. So if we're asking what is the normal weight of the bladder, of the prostate, in correction, so if they're asking what is the normal weight of the prostate, you should measure it at least less than 25 grams. Wait lang. If it's greater than 26 to 30, that's more of your grade 1. 31 to 50, that's your grade 2 prostatic enlargement. 51 to 80, that's your grade 3 prostatic enlargement. And 81, more than 81, that's more of your grade 4 prostatic enlargement. So that's how you measure the weights of your prostatic enlargement. If you're doing a transrectal ultrasound, you could appreciate your central and peripheral zones slightly different for each other, but since it is nearly equal, so what you can do is to distinguish it mainly by position. So the prostate yields a uniform low-level echoes having a peripheral zone and an inner gland composed of your central and transitional zone. Your anterior fibromuscular stroma is seen as hypoechoic area at the anterior superior aspect of the gland. The normal measurements of your prostate gland can be calculated with the formula width times height times length times 0.52. Your seminal vesicles is seen in ultrasound as hypoechoic, lobulated tubular structures in the groove between the base of the bladder and the base of the prostate. For the MRI, it is an excellent method of choice for assessing your prostate since the zonal anatomy can be seen on a T2 weighted imaging. So you could differentiate which is a part of the peripheral zone and part of the transitional or central zone because there will be a difference in the signal intensity. For example, in your peripheral zone, it is highly intense, therefore masyado siyang maputi. In comparison to the central zone or central gland that is having intermediate signal intensity. You have also your seminal vesicle that are seen posterior to the prostate and bladder on axial and sagittal images. So these are the examples of how you will look for your prostate gland using your axial cuts of your MRI and your T2 weighted imaging. As you could see, you could differentiate which is the zonal anatomy. So this is your central gland zone and your peripheral gland zone. As you go up, you could appreciate also your seminal vesicles. Sagittally, you see your central gland at the base of the urinary bladder. Adjacently, you can see your peripheral zone, and superiorly, you could appreciate your seminal vesicle. This is another example of distinguishing your transitional zone in comparison to the peripheral zone. By CT scan, you could appreciate the gland as a round structure of soft tissue density inferior to the bladder. It is very poor in assessing your prostate zonal anatomy and pathology, but using a difference of your hyperdensities through your Hounsfield unit attenuation, you could differentiate your central zone from your peripheral zone. The central zone appears hyper-dense with attenuation, Hounsfield attenuation or Hounsfield unit of 40 to 60 Hounsfield units. For peripheral zone, it appears as hyperdense in relation to a Hounsfield unit of 10 to 25 Hounsfield unit. The use of your CT scan is very useful in staging your metastatic spread. So if you're considering a prostatic CA by MRI and through biopsy and you're looking for metastatic workup for prostatic CA, you should do your CT scan in order to appreciate which of the lymph nodes are affected, how does it progresses throughout, are there any lesions within the vertebra, and yung mga hinahanap natin through your CT scan. Next organ is your testis. So the testis is an oval sperm-producing gland having your upper and lower poles. It is suspended by your spermatic cord in a scrotal sac and is covered by a tightly adherent fibrous capsule called your tunica albuginea. Your tunica is thickened posteriorly and forms a fibrous septum called your mediastinum testis. So multiple fibrous septae divides the testis into lobules with tunica albuginea, mediastinum, and fibrous septae connect to form the support and internal architecture of your testis. So from the testis, you start from a 250 to 400 lobules containing your sperm-producing cells, which can be seen in your straight tubules and seminiferous tubules, which are drained by highly coiled, again, seminiferous tubules. These seminiferous tubules converge to the mediastinum testis, forming a 20 or larger ducts. These enter your mediastinum testis, forming your network of channel within the stroma called your rete testis. Rete means anastomosing network. The rete testis forms a 10 to 15 afferent ductals from the superior part of the mediastinum that pierce into the tunica near the upper pole to convert sperm to the head of the epididymis. So the 10 to 15 efferent ductals come from the superior mediastinum, which connects to your epididymis. So that's how the flow of the sperm goes through your testes. There's also your part of the upper pole of the testis that's a small sessile projection, which is called the appendix of the testis. It is also a remnant of your Mullerian duct, and the testis and epididymis are invaginated anteriorly into a double serous covering called your tunica vaginalis. It is continuous with the peritoneum during development by processus vaginalis, with an outer covering of the testis epididymis, which is your thick scrotum, which is a midline septum dividing the paired scrotal contents. Several layers of covering are appreciated in the testes, such as your skin, tunica dartos, which is a thin fibroelastic vascular layer, We have your external spermatic, cremasteric, and internal spermatic fascia that derive from the fascial layers of the anterior abdominal wall. The testicular size depends on the age and sexual maturity. At birth, the testis is approximately 1.5 cm in length by 1 cm. In adults, the dimensions are approximately 5 cm in length by 3 cm in width and by 2 cm in your anteroposterior view. So any enlargement with a given dimension can be correlated to a pathological cause. So for the radiology of your testes, we do the following radiographic imaging or diagnostic imaging. We have your ultrasound. The ultrasound is an oval structure having an homogeneous granular echo texture with uniform medium level echoes. As you could see, you could appreciate a linear echogenic band running superolaterally, pointed by the red arrows. That can be correlated to the presence of your mediastinum testis. You could also sometimes appreciate a fibroseptate divided, which may sometimes be appreciated as linear echogenic thin bands running through the testis. By longitudinal scan, you could appreciate your upper and lower poles with color Doppler showing the vessels that are often identified running to the testes. These are presented as hypoechoic linear structures by B mode of your ultrasound probe. For magnetic resonance imaging, you could appreciate your tunica albuginea, the mediastinum testis, and fibroseptae as low signal intensity in comparison to a high signal intensity of a normal testicular tissue on your T2 weighted imaging. By T1 weighted imaging, your testis is homogeneously low signal intensity, meaning mas maitim siya. So pag sinabing high intensity, mas maputi siya. So that's the differences in your MRI. By coronal MRI, you could appreciate that there are intermediate signal intensity on your T1 weighted images found on your testes and a high signal intensity on your T2 weighted images. So you have your low intermediate signal, you have your high signal intensity of your testes, and by contrast enhancement, you could appreciate enhancing of your testicular region or testis. The tunica albuginea surrounds the testis, which has a low T1 signal, minsan maitim, and your T2 signal, low T2 signal intensity. So that's your tunica albuginea. The epididymis pointed by your arrowheads is slightly heterogeneous and iso-intense relative to the testis on your T1 weighted image and hypo-intense on your T2 weighted image and slightly hyper-intense on your contrast imaging. You could also appreciate normal fluid surrounding the testis, especially as you could see in the right. So meron parang lumilinya na high intensity fluid collection. However, if you look at the left testis, you could appreciate that there's a large collection of fluid collection within the surrounding the left testis. This can be correlated to the presence of your hydrocele. Next structure is your epididymis. It is a convoluted sperm duct which measures about 6 cm when unraveled. You have a head lying on the upper pole. You have the body that along the posterolateral aspect of the testis and the tail that is lying inferiorly. It turns back on itself an acute angle to become the vas deferens. Your efferent ductules of the testis drains its sperm to the head of the epididymis as discussed earlier. But the function of your epididymis is to concentrate, stores, and transport your sperms to the ejaculatory ducts. The vas deferens, on the other hand, extends from the tail of the epididymis through the scrotum, inguinal canal, and pelvis to fuse with the duct of the seminal vesicle to form the ejaculatory duct in the prostate gland. Your spermatic cord contains the vas deferens, arterial supply, draining veins, lymphatics, and nerves, which is tightly covered by a fibrous sheet comprised of your internal spermatic, cremasteric, and external spermatic fascial layers, which are derived from transversalis, internal and external oblique abdominal fascia. So for the diagnostic imaging of your epididymis, you could do your ultrasound. As you can see in your ultrasound, the head of the epididymis is seen resting on the upper pole posteriorly and the body of epididymis that is seen posterolateral to the testes. The spermatic cord is seen medially to the epididymis. So these are the pointed structures showing your epididymis. By MRI, the variable intensity of epididymis depends on the sequences used. So usually you have a variable intensity. If we're looking for your vas differences, it is described by ultrasound as tortuous veins of pampiniform plexuses, which may be related to the cord above the upper fold. Using your color Doppler ultrasound, you could appreciate a slow venous flow along the spread regions. If you could appreciate engorgement with in the tortuous veins of engorgement are greater than 1.18 or 0.18 millimeters or 0.18 millimeters, I think. Yeah, or 0.18 millimeters. That can be correlated to your engorgement of the veins that can be correlated to your varicose. Okay, any questions? If none, let's discuss the second part, which is your female reproductive system. Let's talk about your vagina. The vagina is the extraperitoneal structure that can be appreciated in a female reproductive system. The muscular canal that extends from the uterus to the vestibule, which has an opening between the labia minora behind the urethra and the clitoris. It is described as has reticular shape, being flattened from front to back. Superiorly, the cervix of the uterus projects into the anterior wall at an acute angle, and there's invagination of the upper vagina and arbitrarily divides it into a shallow, anterior, and deeper posterior and lateral recesses or fornices. In front of the vagina, you could appreciate your base of the bladder. Behind the upper vagina is your pouch of Douglas. The vagina transverse the levator ani muscles and the urogenital diaphragm, which have a sphincter-like action that being appreciated. The levator muscles insert to your fibromuscular node called the perineal body, which lies in between the lower vagina and the anal canal. The supply for your vagina comes from your internal iliac and uterine arteries, while the venous drainage for the vagina goes to the plexus that is seen on the lateral walls to the internal iliac veins. Let's go up and you could appreciate your uterus. The uterus is a pear-shaped muscular organ lying between the bladder and the rectum. With the following parts, you have your fundus, the body, and the cervix. It lies on the posterior superior surface of the bladder with cervix projecting into the anterior wall of the upper vagina, with having the following osses. You have your internal os, which is seen at the upper end of the cervical canal, and you have your external os, which is seen at the lower end. The inner lining of the uterus is what you call your endometrium. So grossly, this is your endometrium. Then you have your internal and external os. So the position of the uterus depends on there are numerous positions or variants that can be appreciated the position of the uterus. It could be anteverted. It could be anteverted and anteflex. You have your retroverted and retroflex. And you have your retroverted. So pag sinabi natin anteflex, naka-bend siya forward. Pag retroflex, naka-bend siya backward. Then you could appreciate that pag anteverted siya, the uterus lies adjacent to the urinary bladder. But if it's retroverted, uterus lies within the rectum. So again, the normal variance is that of the uterus, the normal position is anteverted and anteflex, but usually you have your normal variant such as your retroverted. Again, lies in the posterior plane with the axis of the cervix directed upward and backward. You have your retroflex. The cervix bears the usual relationship with the vagina, but the uterus is bent backward on the cervix. The ligamentous support of the uterus is composed of the following ligaments. We have your parametrial ligament, the broad ligament, and the round ligament. Grossly, you can appreciate your round ligament. You have your cardinal ligament, part of the parametrial ligaments, the ureterosacral ligament, and you have also your broad ligament. The parametrial ligament is composed of your pubocervical ligaments or fascia. You have your transcervical or cardinal ligaments and the ureterosacral ligaments. The pubocervical ligaments or fascia runs anteriorly from the cervix around the base of the bladder to the pubic bone. You have also your transverse cervical ligaments that runs laterally from the cervix and lateral aspects of the vaginal fornix to the pelvic side walls. And lastly, you have your uterosacral ligaments that runs posterior-superiorly to the mid-sacrum on the upper surface of your levator ani muscles. The round ligament, on the other hand, is a fibromuscular band that passes from the upper lateral part of the uterus to the inguinal canal, ending in the labia majora. And broad ligament is a double layer of peritoneum which is seen as a mesentery that encloses the fallopian tube in its upper part and extends from the sides of the uterus to the pelvic side walls and floor. The broad ligament usually communicates with the veins of the vagina and the bladder in what you call as the pelvic plexus of the veins. Your uterine tube is divided into 4 parts. You have your uterine part within the wall of the uterus, which opens into it. You have your isthmus, the long, narrow, and leads to the ampulla. You have your ampulla, where the fertilization usually occurs, but it is described as a wide dilated tortuous part at the outer end, the tortuous tube. And you have your infundibulum, which is the outer extremity of the tube with a funnel shape and having a rim which is fibrated. So this is an example of a gross anatomy showing your infundibulum, ampulla, isthmus, and the uterine tube or the pars urethriana. Next organ is your ovaries, which is described as a pear-shaped, oval-shaped organ that lies on the posterior surface of the broad ligament in close contact with the infundibulum on the fallopian tube and is attached to the ovarian fimbrium. It is when introverted, the ovaries are positioned lateral or anterior to the uterus with variable in size and shape and depends upon the age. The maximum dimension for the ovaries, like in testes, is 5 by 3 by 2 centimeter. Any enlargement can be correlated to a pathological cause. Anterior surface of the ovary is attached to the posterior surface of the broad ligament by a short mesoovarium that fuses with the surface of the ovary. Likewise, you could appreciate a lower pole of the ovary which is being attached to the uterus by your ovarian ligament. So for the radiology of your female pelvis, you have your ultrasound, your CT scan, and your MRI. So for the imaging of the female pelvis, the most common radiological method of imaging for your female reproductive tract is your ultrasound. So for the examination of the uterus, the ovaries, we do your ultrasound. You could do your transrectal, transvaginal, and transabdominal approach for the assessment of your female pelvis. But the most modality of choice in order for the evaluation or most common approach or the best approach to examine the female pelvis is the use of your transvaginal ultrasound. If you're going to do your transabdominal ultrasound, make sure that the full bladder is moderately full so that you could appreciate the adjacent structure, which is your uterus. So by ultrasound, you could appreciate the cervix lying in the midline, with the uterus lying obliquely to either sides, and the uterine myometrial wall yields your uniform low-level echoes. As you could see, your myometrium is relatively hypoechoic in presentation. So this is your hypoechoic region of your myometrium. Then you have your endometrium. These images are taken through your transvaginal approach. You have also your endometrium, which is described as a thin high-level echo seen on a long white stripe on a longitudinal image and central echo on a transverse image. Normally, in postmenopausal women, your endometrium atrophies and measure at least 2 to 3 millimeters. Any enlargement in the endometrium in a postmenopausal women can be correlated to a pathological cause such as your abnormal uterine bleeding unless the patient is taking a hormonal replacement therapy. Usually, if the patient is taking a hormonal replacement therapy, the endometrium may measure up to 10 millimeters or 1 centimeter. For your ovaries, you could appreciate your ovaries in the lateral and posterolateral aspect of the antiflex uterus. It is usually anterior to the internal iliac veins in a somewhat vertical orientation with their long axis parallel to these vessels. So usually when the uterus is tilted to one side, the ovary can be seen frequently located superior to the fundus. So in a normal ovary, you could appreciate your ovary containing small anechoic follicles. So in a late phase of the menstrual cycle, a small amount of fluid may be seen collected in the pouch of Douglas. So this is an example of how you do your transvaginal ultrasound. So you put the probe inside the vaginal canal, and then you could appreciate the structures within it. So it is again improve your transvaginal ultrasound. It is used to improve visualization of the adnexal area together with the internal architecture of the ovary as well as the uterus and uterine cavity. This is an example of a transvaginal approach taken resulting to a better evaluation of your uterus together with the endometrium. For your ovaries taken again in your transvaginal approach, you could differentiate the ovaries as having soft tissue structure with multiple cystic follicles. The maximum ovarian volume before the menarche is 9 cc. In a menstruating women, it's 22 cc and 6 cc in your postmenopausal women. So any enlargement in the specific age group or dates, for example, if there's an enlargement of at least 20 cc in a postmenopausal women, you may consider a pathological cause causing the enlargement of the ovary. But if you see a 20 cc and a menstruating women, okay lang yun. Ibig sabihin, nandun pa rin siya sa normal range. So again, you need to differentiate if it's a 9 cc to the 22 cc for a menstruating women and a 6 cc in a postmenopausal women. So these are examples of a transvaginal approach taken in visualization your female reproductive system. As you could see, you could appreciate your right ovary and your left ovary with dominant cystic follicles. By CT scan, the uterus is seen as round structure of soft tissue density lying on or behind the bladder. With the use of oral contrast or even your rectal contrast, it could help differentiate the loops of the bowel which lies on it and around it. MRI is an excellent method of choice in imaging the uterus, but it is used due to its superior soft tissue contrast and advantage of being able to image all planes on your T2-weighted image, such as your endometrium and the cervical canal and the vaginal canal, all of which produces a high signal intensity. You could also appreciate your myometrium as a low signal intensity and continues with the fibrous stroma of the cervix, known as your junctional zone. Your outer myometrium is again intermediate signal intensity, with the outer serosal having a hypointense layer. The cervical canal is a high signal intensity that is continuous in the flow in your endometrial canal. On your T1 weighted imaging, the uterus and ovaries are homogeneously intermediate signal intensity with poor intrinsic contrast. So this is an example of an MRI of the female pelvis taken in sagittal section demonstrating your uterus and cervix. As you can see, you have the serosal of the uterus, you have your myometrium, the junctional zone of the uterus with your endometrium, you have your anterior lip of the cervix, you have your cervical canal, you have your posterior vaginal fornix, you have your vagina, we have also other structures such as your small bowel loops, you have your sigmoid region, you have your rectum, which can be seen in this region, you have your pubic bones, and you have your rectus muscles. When we talk about your HSG, it is a technique that outlines the cavity of the uterus and tube by injection of water-soluble contrast via the cervical canal. It is used for detecting used for fertility workup. So any structure being appreciated with the use of HSG, or there is a cessation of having a contrast peeling within the peritoneal canal, can be correlated to a pathological cause, meaning there's an obstructing or there is an area that is being obstructed to be to help for the fertilization of the fertilization of the egg cells. So usually yun yung nagiging problem. And during his HSG, yun yung check natin by radiological imaging, particularly with the use of fluoroscopy. So during the time, yun kapag merong stricture, may problem with the spillage, and i-report natin siya to our radiological report, and we coordinate it to your OB-GYN. Thank you. Any questions po?
No questions po.
Okay, if none, so good luck on your prelims exam and